People who love too deeply often dawn to realize that the intensity of their love is less a choice and more a reflection of emotional imprints formed long before they ever met the people who would break them. Their love is not simply affection, it is devotion, surrender, and a search for meaning in connection. These individuals carry a heart shaped by longing, by unmet emotional needs, by the desire to finally feel chosen in a world that once made them question their value. When they love, they do so with the entirety of their being, offering not just companionship but emotional oxygen. And because they love with such sincerity, they tend to believe others will offer the same in return. But the world rarely mirrors their intensity. Instead, they often find themselves pouring into people who are not emotionally prepared to receive the depth they offer. Their love becomes a silent dialogue between what they craved in childhood and what they chase in adulthood. Each new connection feels like a chance to rewrite their past, to finally be seen the way they deserved to be seen years ago. And so they love fiercely, hoping that their depth will finally be the key that unlocks reciprocity, not realizing that they are often drawn to people who cannot match them. Not because they are unworthy, but because their emotional language is rare, misunderstood, and frequently exploited. People who love too deeply often develop an emotional radar that is hypersensitive to the needs and moods of the people they care about. This sensitivity is not accidental. It is usually the result of growing up in environments where they had to anticipate emotional shifts to feel safe or valued. So, in adulthood, they read micro-expressions, tones of voice, pauses, and silences with almost supernatural accuracy. But instead of using this ability to protect themselves, they use it to protect others, often at their own expense. They convince themselves that if they can just love someone enough, stabilize them enough, pour enough emotional energy into the connection, then the relationship will finally feel balanced. They confuse emotional labor with love, believing that saving someone will guarantee loyalty or affection. And because they sense pain in others so clearly, they feel responsible for healing wounds they never created. This turns their relationships into emotional battlegrounds where they fight for the happiness of the other person while neglecting their own. The tragedy is that their depth becomes a burden they carry alone. They give endlessly, trying to prove they deserve to stay, even when the other person does nothing to earn that devotion. And slowly, almost without noticing, they begin shrinking themselves, softening their needs, and silencing their own discomfort because they fear losing the connection more than they fear losing themselves. People who love too deeply often carry a silent fear that if they stop giving, the entire relationship will collapse. This fear is rooted in a subconscious belief that they are only valuable when they are useful, supportive, or emotionally available. So they become the backbone of every connection, the emotional anchor, the steady presence that holds everything together. But this reliability comes with a hidden cost. No one ever checks on the strong one. No one wonders if the giver is exhausted, overwhelmed, or quietly breaking inside. The person who loves too deeply becomes accustomed to being the emotional provider, unaware that they have trained others to rely on them without offering anything in return. And because they normalize one-sided emotional labor, they start believing that receiving love feels foreign or uncomfortable. When someone finally treats them with gentleness, consistency, or genuine care, they often mistrust it, convinced that there must be a hidden motive behind such kindness. Their depth has been taken for granted for so long that sincere affection feels unreal. They are more familiar with longing than receiving, more comfortable with giving than being held. And so even when they crave deep connection, they repeatedly choose partners who mirror their past wounds, distant, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable people, because this pattern feels familiar, even if it hurts. In trying to heal others, they are really trying to heal a younger version of themselves who never learned that love shouldn't have to be earned through suffering. People who love too deeply often find themselves trapped in relationships where they mistake emotional intensity for emotional safety. They confuse the adrenaline of uncertainty, the highs and lows of inconsistent affection, with the feeling of true love. This happens because their nervous system has been conditioned to associate unpredictability with passion. When a partner becomes distant or cold, they don't pull away, they try harder. They overextend themselves, offering more tenderness, more reassurance, more emotional effort, believing that if they can calm the storm, they'll finally earn a moment of peace. But this peace rarely comes. Instead, they become addicted to the cycle of craving and receiving, longing and hoping, breaking and healing. Their heart begins to interpret emotional scarcity as proof. People who love too deeply often struggle with boundaries, not because they don't understand them, but because they fear that enforcing boundaries will push people away. They have spent so much of their lives trying to be easy to love that the idea of saying no, stepping back, or demanding better feels terrifying. They associate boundaries with conflict and conflict with loss. So instead of protecting themselves, they tolerate behaviors that drain them emotionally. They rationalize red flags, forgive too quickly, and stay too long in situations that chip away at their self-worth. And even when they recognize that they are being mistreated or undervalued, they cling to hope. The hope that things will change, that the person will eventually see their loyalty, that their patience will be rewarded. But hope becomes a trap. It keeps them in cycles where their love is taken for granted rather than cherished. Because people who love too deeply often project their own emotional capacity onto others, believing that if they can feel something so intensely, the other person must feel it too. They assume others have the same conscience, the same empathy, the same desire for connection. But this assumption sets them up for disappointment. Not everyone loves with depth, and not everyone values emotional intimacy the same way. And until they learn this truth, they continue giving more than they receive, mistaking their own self-sacrifice for loyalty instead of recognizing it as a sign of emotional imbalance. The hardest lesson for these individuals is understanding that boundaries are not walls. They are doors that open only to those who respect them. People who love too deeply often confuse emotional familiarity with emotional compatibility. They don't fall for people who treat them well. They fall for people who feel recognizable to their nervous system. This is why they are often drawn to emotionally unavailable partners, inconsistent communicators, or individuals who give affection in unpredictable ways. Their heart gravitates toward people who mirror the emotional patterns they grew up with, even if those patterns cause them pain. To them, uncertainty feels like home, intensity feels like connection, and emotional chaos feels like passion. When someone comes along offering stability, predictability, or genuine softness, they often misinterpret it as a lack of chemistry. Their nervous system is so accustomed to fight or flight dynamics that calmness feels suspicious. So instead of choosing partners who nourish them, they unconsciously choose relationships that replicate their wounds, hoping that this time love will heal what hurt them in the past. This creates a painful cycle. They repeatedly love people who cannot love them back with the same depth, and then blame themselves for the imbalance. They think they were not enough, when in reality they were simply loving the wrong person through the right heart. What they must learn is that compatibility is not built on intensity. It is built on emotional safety. And until they understand this difference, they will continue mistaking their trauma's echo for their soul's calling. People who love too deeply often carry a quiet belief that if they can fully understand someone's pain, they can earn that person's love. This belief turns them into emotional detectives, studying every detail, every insecurity, every trauma of the person they care about. They become experts in someone else's suffering while remaining strangers to their own. They pour themselves into healing others because no one ever taught them that they deserve healing too. And while their compassion is genuine, it becomes dangerous when it convinces them that love must be repaired before it can be received. They stay in relationships long after the emotional return has disappeared, motivated not by companionship, but by the mission to fix what is broken. They view their partner's wounds as invitations to prove their loyalty, believing that if they can love someone through their darkness, they will finally be loved in the light. But this often leads them to overlook fundamental incompatibilities, dismiss harmful behaviors, and ignore their own emotional needs. They become so focused on understanding the other person that they stop asking whether that person understands them. And slowly, without realizing it, they begin to shrink, lowering their standards, softening their boundaries, and sacrificing their peace, all in the name of love. The painful truth is that emotional understanding is not the same as emotional reciprocity. They must learn that they can empathize with someone else's pain without making it their responsibility to heal it. Only then can they love with depth and dignity. People who love too deeply often struggle to differentiate between loyalty and self-abandonment. To them, staying even when it hurts feels like a moral duty. They see leaving as a form of betrayal, so they remain in relationships long after their emotional needs have been neglected or dismissed. This devotion does not come from weakness. It comes from a wounded belief that love must be proven through endurance. They convince themselves that every relationship requires sacrifice, but they are the only ones sacrificing. They excuse inconsistency, justify distance, and rationalize emotional neglect, all because they fear that walking away means they failed. But the truth is that they were the ones holding the relationship together, carrying both their weight and the weight of the other person. In the process, they forget that love is supposed to feel like mutual growth, not constant labor. Their heart becomes exhausted, yet they keep giving, believing that more effort will fix what is broken. What they do not realize is that real love does not demand that they lose themselves. It does not punish them for having needs or make them feel guilty for wanting to be seen. Their depth is a gift, but it becomes destructive when it is offered to someone who only takes. The lesson they must learn is that leaving is not betrayal. Sometimes it is the ultimate act of self-respect. Walking away from someone who cannot love them the way they love is not failure. It is choosing themselves for the first time. People who love too deeply often reach a point where they finally realize that their heart, despite its strength, cannot keep carrying the weight of one-sided love forever. This realization does not come suddenly. It builds slowly through countless moments of silence, unanswered messages, unreciprocated effort, and emotional exhaustion. One day, they simply feel the truth settle inside them. They cannot continue giving pieces of themselves to someone who does not cherish them. But even then, the decision to let go is not easy. Letting go for them is not the end of love, it is the end of hope. And hope is what kept them fighting for the relationship long after it stopped fighting for them. So when they finally choose themselves, it feels like grief, not liberation. They mourn the future they imagined, the memories they wanted to create, the version of the other person they fell in love with, not the version who actually showed up. But with time, they begin to understand that stepping away is not a punishment. It is an act of self-preservation. They rediscover their individuality, their worth, and the parts of themselves they sacrificed in the name of love. They learn that love should never require them to shrink, to chase, or to suffer. And as they heal, they realize that their depth was never the problem. It was simply misplaced. When they finally meet someone who matches their emotional intensity, who values their softness, who loves with the same sincerity they offer, they understand that loving deeply was never their flaw. It was their superpower. They just needed to give that depth to someone capable of holding it.